From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and Million Dollar Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Wow Report on Radio Andy, where we count down the top 10 things from the past week that make us go, wow, I'm in control. I'm James St. James, editor of the Wow Report, and I'm joined by our Zennial producer, Blake Jacobs.
That's right. I'm between Generation X, which you are,
yes,
and a millennial.
Well, there you go. He's sitting in for Tom Campbell, who I believe is in Las Vegas right now for the Drag Race Live, which premieres this week.
Yeah, it opened last night.
It did. Mm-hmm. Fabulous. We'll hear about that next week, I'm sure. And we're joined via FaceTime by our fearless leader, Fenton Bailey, founder and CEO of World of Wonder. Welcome, Fenton Bailey.
Hi. How are you?
I'm very good. You're having a great time in London?
Yes, I am. I was, this last week, I was at Sundance.
Yes.
Seeing some great films.
We're going to hear all about that.
And then I get to London for the National Television Awards the other night, this week. Drag Race was nominated for 2 awards for Best Show, I forget what, Best Entertainment Format, and Best Host. And trombone, we lost.
Oh, no.
But Michelle was there. All the queens from season 1 were there. They came on stage. They presented an award.
Nice.
It was a great moment. It was lovely to be there.
And you were in Sundance because World of Wonder had a film there, Whirlybird, right?
That's
a documentary.
right.
And I watched it yesterday thinking we were going to talk about it today, but it's not on your list.
Well, it is and it isn't. I think we could talk about it. My number 2, I think we could share. There's another film I want to talk about, but let's talk about it.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, moving right along, we're coming to you live from the World of Wonder storefront gallery window, and it's next to the Wow store. Browse online at the store at worldofwonder.net. And watch us on Wow Report for Radio Andy on Wow Presents on YouTube. Now, let's get started with the countdown. At number 10, I believe that's you, Blake.
Number 10.
That is. So I listened to Kat Marnell's new Audible original. You know, you introduced me to Kat Marnell, How to Murder Your Life.
Yes, she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous.
Just a train wreck, but in the best way. Like, I love her.
Wait, a little backstory. She was the beauty editor at, where was it?
She was the beauty editor at Lucky. And I think she spent some time at Jane.
Right, and her columns were always how to fix your makeup after being on a 5-day meth bender, like things like that. Like how to get rid of the OxyContin stores with this fabulous new product.
Yes, and How to Murder Your Life is her autobiography that came out a couple of years ago. I listen to it all the time, but
about her Adderall addiction mostly. Yeah.
But this is kind of the follow-up. It's not really the follow-up, I don't think, because it's not like a book release.
Right.
It's just an Audible original, but it's called Self-Tanner for the Soul, How I Ran Away to Europe and Found My Inner Glow When Life Got Dark.
Because what I understood was that she got this fabulous, fabulous advance for her book, and then she just took the money and ran off to Europe and just ran around and had a great time.
That's exactly what it is. Now...
My God, James, she sounds just like you.
I love her. She is my spirit animal.
That's crazy because that is what I wanted to talk about. There are so many times that I'm like, is she James?
Well, I know that she has said that because she and I talk on Twitter sometimes, and she has said that Party Monster is a great influence of hers, and she was a teenager when it came out, and so it's something that she always looks to.
She's actually...
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's like 10 days older than me. Like, but
she's and just a beautiful, beautiful woman. Just funny.
I love her.
Smart, and just beautiful.
Yeah, she is like you. Like, she'll miss a $900 flight and have to pay $900 because she overslept or something. Or there was this one part in the story where she's in Basel, Switzerland.
Yeah,
and she's like floating down. You can apparently like get on the river and float down. And something, but you're supposed to, like get off of the inner tube or something, and she just kept floating by like she's like in the Red Sea or something. I'm like, this is exactly like James St. James. I loved it. She it's not as, I wouldn't say it's as good as, I love it just the same, but it's not like her first one, because her first one is like all the crazy stories in her life.
Yes.
This is kind of her, like, I mean, she doesn't have to create crazy. It just follows her, I feel like. But this feels more, like I need something to write about.
Well, this is it's also just an audiobook, isn't it? There isn't like an actual physical book that she made. So I think it's sort of like maybe a trend of things to come.
Yes.
It's like a cross between a podcast and it's sort of podcast. Like,
Yeah, I think so.
Audio.
Yeah.
I think Amazon own Audible, and they've been really aggressive about creating this original content.
Mm-hmm.
John Ronson has written a couple of.
Oh yeah, he's the one. Yeah, he's someone you turned me on to.
Well, here's a little passage that really reminded me of a story James told me.
Great.
Anyway, I was also annoyed by the €50 pedicure I paid for at a nail salon dive in Cannes. So annoyed that I didn't even go to the sex store next door to buy French poppers. And I was in a bad mood because I love collecting international poppers.
Well, that's funny.
Are you sure you didn't write that?
And that just reminds me because Chi LaRue just reopened Circus of Books here in Los Angeles, and I thought this was hysterical. They have a poppers bar there.
I love that.
You go and you just sit at the bar and
you get to try 'em?
You order different poppers and just try poppers.
Someone said there's organic poppers. What is that? From farm to hoe or something?
I feel like poppers are making a comeback.
I think so too.
Well, it's available on Amazon Audible for Amazon.
Okay, well, moving on to number 9. That's me.
Number 9.
I watched Goop Lab on Netflix, the Gwyneth Paltrow wellness series.
I watched the first episode.
I went into it wanting to hate it. My eyes were rolled so far back in my head. I wanted to hate Gwyneth. I thought that it was basically just going to be rich white women sitting around smelling candles, and that was sort of what I thought it was.
Instead of poppers.
But it isn't. It's a really diverse group of people that work at Goop. And you end up loving all of them, essentially. Her content creator, her chief content creator, and her bestie, sort of, is this woman named Elise Lonin, and she's just adorable. And the two of them start off every episode, and Gwyneth is always in $100,000 Valentino floaty day look, or Chanel or something. And Alyssa is just sort of. She's just adorable, and they introduce.
I found her kind of annoying.
Did you? Well, you grow to love her as this sort of series goes on. And every episode, they introduce a topic. And the first one is tripping on magic mushrooms in Jamaica as sort of a therapeutic way to work through different trauma in your life. And they all go to Jamaica and trip on mushrooms. And the second episode is cold therapy, where they swim with glaciers in ice water, and they do snow yoga and everything. And there's a really hot guy in that one, and that's really great. The third one is the one that I want to talk about because we did an article about it on the WoW Report. Jared Abbott is the guy who writes for us, and he wrote about this episode, and it was called "The Pleasure Is Ours," and it's about learning about your vulva and and learning about how to masturbate for women who have difficulty achieving orgasm and who have never really explored their bodies. And they have this 90-year-old woman, Betty Dodson, who's a very famous sex educator.
Oh, we know Betty Dodson. We made films with her. Oh my God.
Yes, she's fantastic. She is so funny, and she's like, get naked and let's look at your vulva, and we're just gonna do. And they bring this girl who works there who grew up in Shanghai, and she has all sorts of shame about her body, and they put her through Betty Dodson's class. And at one point, there's you just see all the vulvas at Goop, and in extreme close-up. And the idea is that this one girl was saying that she thought she was deformed because the labia looked different than other girls and things, this and that. And Betty says, no, look, we're just going to look at everyone's vulva. And, I mean, up close right there, and there it is. And, huge, huge, huge on my TV. And you're just going to see that every vulva is different and every vulva is beautiful. And that's sort of the idea of the episode. And the idea climaxes, Jared says, in a truly revolutionary moment on television and concludes in one of the most sex-positive discussions that's ever been seen in mainstream entertainment. And say what you will about the other topics explored in the series, pleasure is ours that episode 3 is something that we can all learn from. And it is fascinating TV, and I recommend everybody watching Goop. I never thought I would say that ever.
I wished Gwyneth would have been tripping on the mushrooms.
Well, you do wish that we would have seen Gwyneth's vulva, and you would have seen her tripping on mushrooms. And she does sort of stay out of the fray a little bit.
Yeah, seems like it. And where's the Jade egg?
Well, it does sort of feel a little bit like World of Wonder, though, where you never know what is going to happen on any day when you walk into the office. Because it's an interesting place to work. So anyway, yes?
No, it's just so funny. Betty Dawson, I can't remember when we filmed her. I think it was like 10 or maybe even 15 years ago. She's doing the same old thing. You get down, take off your clothes, get out of the mirror, and look at your vulva.
Yes.
So television definitely changed because we could know what they were doing, but we couldn't show it. So,
it is a shocking moment on television when you are it is like a gynecological view.
It was an eye-opener.
Yeah, Betty talks about how it started in the 70s. She was probably like 50 years old, I guess, in the 70s when she started doing her sex classes. And she's still going strong, and she's still
if she was 50 in the 70s, then that would make her like 90.
She is 90. She's in her 90s.
Gosh.
Yeah, she's in her 90s now. And she's
my
like,
goodness.
that's what I'm saying. She is still just going strong and just feisty as hell.
Stream that on Netflix.
Yeah, please.
I guess we're moving on to number 8.
Yeah, Fenton.
Number 8.
Number 8. I was at the Sundance Film Festival, as James said, because World of Wonder has a film that we executive produced called Whirlybird. But I managed to get a ticket, a much sought after ticket to go see Hillary. And Hillary is a 4-hour documentary series, 4 hours long, 1 hour, all about Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm. Was she there?
Mm-hmm.
Was she there?
Oh, well, yes, yes, she was there, and she came out and did a Q&A at the end.
That's interesting. Have you ever heard her talk?
In fact, James, I took a picture of the Q&A. I was in the audience. I took a picture, posted it on Instagram, and then guess who regrammed it?
Who?
And tagged me. Hillary Clinton.
Stop it!
I saw that she had tagged you. I was like, how did this happen?
That is fantastic.
I know, in all honesty, it cannot be the best picture that was taken. It's way back. They're tiny on the screen. But I have to tell you, Hillary evokes Marmite-like reactions. Right? You love her or you hate her. And I think what is so great about this 4-hour documentary, this film, is that right from the very beginning, it addresses this subject of her likability. And it's like a sort of theme all the way through. And Nanette Burstein is a filmmaker. She's made many fabulous films. I think the one she's most known for is The Kid Stays in the Picture. And what Nanette did is she sat down with Hillary for 7 days and did 7 days of interviews from which she has culled this 4-hour documentary. And it's brilliantly constructed because you start off with just this very simple head and shoulders interview of her, and then they go into the 2016 campaign, and then they'll come back out of the 2016 campaign and tell part of her backstory, and then back to the campaign, back to her backstory. So we begin with her childhood after the first piece of the campaign, and then it's fascinating, how young she and Bill were when Bill became governor of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And the very first sort of controversy that defined her was the fact that she didn't change her name. She was Hillary Rodham.
Yeah.
And they just didn't like this.
Well, for almost 40 years now, there has been a systemic attempt to just discredit her and to people smear her at every given chance.
Exactly. And it is a bit like Job in the Bible. As you go through her career, it's like one blow after another blow after another blow, one sort of awful situation that she pushes on through. And I suppose that climaxes in a way. I mean, I suppose the two most, her husband cheating on her was a real blow for her, obviously, and then defeated.
And for him, ha!
What?
And for him, ha!
No, James, please.
Sorry.
And you realize that, just speaking, James, what you said, this systemic, this sort of ingrained thing. I mean, Hillary, I think, has the perfect. I mean, I think to see her and listen to her talk, it's impossible not to like her.
Yeah.
And you really hear her unpack, over 4 hours, everything that happened. She's not defensive. She's not brittle. She's not bitter. She doesn't lash out. She just is like, she's like, in some respects, as perplexed as you or I might be about why people dislike her.
Well,
At one point, she tells this joke. She says, there's this man walking along a cliff edge, and he falls off. And as he's falling down to earth, he grabs a branch. And so he's hanging there in midair, and he calls out to God and says, God, help me, please. I've led a good life. I've helped people. I've been a good person. Please help me. And then God says, yeah, but there's just something about you I don't like. And, I think she's a victim of this sort of negative feedback loop in the way that, say, someone like Donald Trump is the beneficiary of a positive feedback loop that is equally baffling.
But I do remember in the 90s when she gave that interview on the Today Show, and she said that I have been a victim of a vast right-wing conspiracy for 20 years, whatever. And everybody made such fun of her and said that she's paranoid, she's crazy, she's delusional, and yet it has proven true time and time again. And
it is.
She's like Cassandra in that respect, where she's always speaking the truth and nobody ever believes her.
Absolutely. And the other thing, James, is I think there's a sort of tremendous ingrained sexism. There's a moment in the film, quite late in the film, when she becomes secretary. I mean, just 1 second. This is a woman who has been wife of the governor, first lady, almost managed to reform healthcare, senator for New York, secretary of state. It's
never anybody more qualified. Never anybody more qualified to be president.
Absolutely. Incredible career. But at one point late in the film, Obama crops up because he's explaining why he hired her as Secretary of State. And the moment he appears on screen, there's spontaneous applause.
Yeah.
And you suddenly realize, I mean, we love Obama. We all love Obama. But in that moment, you realize Hillary doesn't get the benefit of that. Hillary doesn't get a spontaneous round of applause. And really, she deserves one. She has suffered more, worked harder, fought against all sorts of prejudice. And it's just, you realize what a tremendously sexist culture we're in, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And I think the Republicans seized on that and just used it to torment her, And also Bill and women, they used Hillary as almost as part of the package, as the way, as his Achilles heel, the way to smear him. And it's terribly cruel and unjust, and I think she's an amazing person.
It's funny because I honestly don't, you think like what the world would have been had she been president, but when you see the way the Democrats have seized on Donald Trump, what the Republicans would have done to her had she been president, it would have been bloody hell just from day one, and I don't think she would have accomplished anything either. I think it's a sad situation. This Hillary documentary will be coming to Hulu, I believe. March 8th is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's actually March 8th, but definitely in March.
Oh, good. Anyway, we have to move on a little bit.
Right.
I do just want to mention that Drag Race Live is open now at the Flamingo in Las Vegas. Get your tickets on RuPaul's Drag Race Live.com. And we have a question for when we come back. What is that?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
We talked about Gwyneth's Goop,
Yeah.
the Goop Lab. Gwyneth shares a godfather with what other famous actress?
Oh, that's a good question. We'll answer that when we come back.
This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
Thank you, yeah.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello and welcome back. I'm James St. James, and I'm joined by our Zennial producer, Blake Jacobs.
Hi.
Who's sitting in for Tom Campbell, and our fearless leader, Fenton Bailey, via FaceTime from the UK. Welcome, Fenton.
Hi.
Now, before we left, we had a question from our Zennial producer. What was it?
I asked, we talked about the Goop Lab on Netflix,
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow's new show. Mm-hmm. She shares a godfather with what other famous actress?
I'm going to say Julie Andrews.
That's the Godfather? I'm going to say...
Oh, God, I thought it was Godmother. I don't know then.
Marlon Brando. Who?
No, she shares a godfather with Drew Barrymore.
Oh.
And the godfather is Steven Spielberg.
Oh, of course, because she was Wendy in
On Hook.
Yeah, she was Wendy
Hook.
in Hook when she was just a girl. Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Okay. Well, we are on to number 7. That would be Blake. What do you have for us?
Number 7.
Well, I went to see The Turning.
What is that?
It is a new scary movie. I can't believe you haven't heard of it because it stars the one and only Finn Wolfhard.
I love me some Finn Wolfhard.
I knew you did. Now, if I can get a little bit stuff on from
Sure.
Saturday Night Live, this movie has it all. Bad child acting, ghost on ghost sexual assault,
Woo!
an empty swimming pool with Jolie Richardson painting in it, and a new song from Courtney Love.
Really? Courtney Love did music for a horror film?
She did.
Who is the director of this? Who got Courtney Love?
Her name is, I'll have to look that up.
It was a female director.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
This director, her name is Floria Sigismondi.
Oh, sure. She was
Gloria Sigismundi.
Yeah, she was a very
Oh my
famous
God.
music video director in the 90s, right? That's how she got her
Yes,
start.
I think
And then
she directed a lot of the Marilyn Manson videos.
Right, sure, yes. Oh, she's really fantastic, isn't she?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Well,
Stunning visuals.
Yes.
Stunning.
so it makes sense that she was kind of... So this movie was set in the late 93, early 94.
Her period, sure. And she probably knew Courtney from then, too, as well.
Right. The song, all the music was kind of like Riot Girl. Not...
Fun, yeah.
I know. I loved that. The girl's hair kind of looked like Courtney Love's hair.
Okay, good.
And when you first see the main character, the suicide of the news of the suicide of Kurt Cobain is on in the background of the.
Well, wait, but what is the story? What is the horror?
Well, it's a taking of Turn of the Screw.
Oh, okay, sure. Oh, the turning, of course, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right.
Which is the haunted house and the little children and everything, right?
Right, and the governess.
Yeah, the governor, uh-huh.
But the ending of this, it just kind of ended. There were actually
What about
2
the-
endings, and it
What about
ends.
the ghosts having sex? I want to know about that.
Well, there's the ghost who killed the governess apparently sexually assaulted her before he murdered her, but the girl walks in and just hears the bed creaking and sees it moving. That's why it's like ghosts. You never see any.
Oh, the ghosts are having sex on the bed?
Right, but you can't see them.
Oh, okay.
Like they're invisible. So
Okay.
Two ghosts are having sex with each other.
Yeah. Well, one is having sex with the other, but it's kind of like ghost rape.
Well, is one living and one dead?
No,
Is
no,
that-
no.
The one ghost is raping the other ghost.
Yeah, it's like a vision in the main character's head, or not a vision.
Oh.
Maybe it's real. She doesn't know. Hence the story. But I would say wait for this to come to Redbox or DVD or something.
Okay, sort of sounds interesting though. I'm going to continue that the horror right there with number 6.
Number 6.
I read an article in the Daily Mail about the Bloody Benders. Do you know who the Bloody Benders are, Fenton? They were the first family of serial killers known in the world. They were in the 1870s in America, in Labette, Kansas, the Bender family. And it was a father who spoke German. He didn't really, he just sort of grunted in guttural sounds. He really didn't speak any language. And the mother, who is this evil woman, and she was known as, she was sort of a witchy character. Elvira was her name, Elvira Bender. And then they had a son, John Jr., who was sort of a half-wit, and he just sort of walked around the town and giggled sort of mysteriously all the time. And then there was another girl named Kate, who was a daughter, and she was apparently very pretty and well-spoken, and she was a psychic, and she would have people come to the house for psychic readings and seances, and she became sort of famous all over America for her ability to talk to the dead. Well, there was a lot of dead in the house. because they had this house, and it was on the Osage Trail, which was the trail that opened up onto the Old West. So there was a lot of traffic coming into it. It was like one of the only trails open at the time. And they had a bed and breakfast in a restaurant, and people would come to stay at the bed and breakfast, and they had a long table, and they would the person would sit at the head of the table. They were the welcome guest and the honored guest, and they would sit at the very, and underneath was a trap door, and someone would hide behind the curtain with Elvira or John with a hammer, come out and hit them in the head, and then the trap door would open, and they would, as they were bleeding down, and they would go down a slide into the slaughter room where they would go and be slaughtered. Well, they did this time and time again. People would come and stop and never leave. And it sort of got known around the town that you don't go and eat at the Benders because you aren't going to come back. And it was sort of like a joke everywhere, but come to find out that they really were murdering people, and it sort of sounds a little bit like
Texas Chainsaw
Massacre.
Yeah. Did they eat them? Because the Sweeney Todd story in England,
right, yeah.
The barber would cut their throats and then cook them into pie.
And he also had a trapdoor, didn't he? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But they didn't eat them, but they did find when someone finally escaped alive because they didn't want to sit at the table, and they got hit in the head, but they ran out anyway. And they went to the police, and the police came back, and by that time they had left, they'd escaped, and they started digging up the yard, and they found like 20 or 30 bodies, and they started. They realized there was probably more, and nobody ever found the Benders again, and there was sort of a myth that rose up about them, that people would say they saw them in Wyoming, they saw them in Montana, they were killing in California, and for years and years and years. In fact, in the Little House on the Prairie books, Pa goes to look for the Father Bender at one point.
Really?
Yeah, and so it was something that for years and years, and even in the 1930s, they finally found an old man who was convicted of murder, and they thought that it might be the son. This was 50 years later, and they're still looking for them. And it's just a fascinating story. It sort of sounds a little bit like, is it Last House on the Left, or the Hills Have Eyes, maybe,
Hills
sort
Have
of?
Eyes,
it
yeah.
seems to me that it sort of permeated into American culture.
Well,
but I
and
don't.
the name Elvira, I wonder if like Elvira got her name because of.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it makes you think that there's never been a movie about them,
Right.
And
That would have been a better movie than The Turning.
Well, there you go. So it's just, I did a deep dive into the Bender family, and I just think that I'm putting it out there into the universe that I think there needs to be a Bloody Bender movie.
Well, we'll link.
Why were they in the news, though, in the first place?
Well, sometimes Daily Mail just sort of like, if it's a slow news day, they just dig up a story from the 1870s. You know how it is. That's what we do on the Wow Report, too.
We'll link to that story on the Wow Report this week.
Right. Well, now, moving on to number 5, we have another Sundance movie, and this one is sort of interesting, too. Go.
Number 5.
Yes, it's Miss Americana, which is directed by Lana Wilson, and it is a documentary about Taylor Swift.
Another woman who is unjustly hated, maybe?
Absolutely right, James. You took the words right out of my mouth. This, however, is not 4 hours long. I mean, what's interesting is this film opened Sundance, and I think that fans of Taylor Swift may be disappointed because it isn't really a concert film at all. There's like a couple of obligatory clips of massive fandom and stardom, but it's not a concert film at all. Instead, it's really an interior monologue from Taylor about her story and her journey. Not so much I did this, I did that. It's more sort of metaphysical meditation or rumination on how, as a little kid, she always saw her value as, and this is, kids, beware of this is not good. She always saw her value as dependent on other people's applause. Everything she did, she lived to be applauded and adored. Not necessarily because she's a narcissist, she may be, but because she just felt this was the way she would be validated and would be serving people and would be of use.
Was this because of her parents, do you think, instilled that in her? Or where did she get that from?
Very, very loving parents, very close relationship with her parents. Some kids just have a will and a drive and a need, and I think she is that person. But I think where the story gets really interesting, of course, is when Kanye snatched the mic from her hand at the MTV Awards, because you have to admit, this is a narrative we haven't really heard Taylor's story. Even when, she said at the time that she was having fun and she was excited that Kanye was there, and then suddenly she wasn't so excited he was there. That's sort of what she said at the time, and then
he hijacked her narrative. He hijacked her narrative. He hijacked the narrative of her win and her whole story.
Well, exactly. And then years later, right, didn't he released a song calling Taylor Swift a bitch and saying that Taylor Swift had signed off on that.
And even after he apologized, he still managed to make the story about him, though, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Still about him. And this was when Taylor's reputation collapsed. And she really felt terrible, and she retreated. And that's what led to the album Reputation. And look, I think a lot of people sometimes thought this was a very self-involved documentary, a rather vain, narcissistic one. But, tough titties, because we're living in a narcissistic age. And so, at one point I think someone asked Taylor if her social media responses are curated. And she's like, of course they are. What do you expect? I mean, it's like, you cannot be a star and the center of all this attention without it having some
having control over it.
And it was really interesting to hear her take on, because out of this is the moral of the story. Out of this, really, I think Taylor engaged with. I like to call the film The Waking of Taylor Swift, and I think The Waking of Taylor Swift actually has been the making of her, because she really, after having retreated and licked her wound, she was like, fuck it, I'm not going to be silent. I'm not going to be less than. I'm not going to hide my opinions. I know I'm a country music star, and the tradition there is that you don't say what you think about politics. And she's like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And it so happened that a particularly evil Republican woman was running for election. I can't remember the name. I think it might be Patricia Buchanan. And Patricia, or whoever her name, she wanted to repeal this law that protected women from stalkers. And Taylor was like, what the fuck? Taylor's gone home to find fans in her bed and being stalked. And she was... remember, she was sexually assaulted
by the DJ, yeah. Uh-huh.
And there's a picture, you can see the picture of the man's hand up her skirt. And so I just think it's actually for kids especially, it's a really inspiring story, because I feel she finds her voice. And,
but hold on.
Also with supporting the gays and doing...
with Todrick, she does a lot of things with Todrick.
You need to calm down. That's
right.
Yeah, I mean...
But hold on.
Ultimately, it's a very inspiring story, and I think it's the same thing that Hillary, whereas Hillary before her has been up against more prejudice, I think still Taylor is up against this fundamental misogyny and this sexism, and power to Taylor and to Hillary for just powering through it. And
wait, hold on, because the thing is, it is very similar to Hillary right there, because whatever Taylor does, she's going to get bashed for it. When people accused her of serial dating, when she was a serial monogamist and she would get a little crazy with the boyfriends, she would also, at the same token, she would be praised for the videos and the music that came out of that. And so she was led to believe that that's what she should do. She should keep dating boys and she should write about them. And then when she did, she started getting shit for it. So she pulled back and didn't write about boys and didn't do those kinds of songs. And then she started getting shit for that. And then she was known as the serial girlfriend, the best friend. And then everyone was like, well, why aren't you dating anyone? And then she starts dating anyone, and then she gets shit for it. No matter what she does, she gets shit for it. She gets both positive feedback and then a negative feedback, and she doesn't know what to do with it.
Exactly. And Hillary, who at this point obviously just doesn't care anymore, Hillary was saying, people always say to me, your hair's too long, your hair's too short. It's like, there is
what can you do?
To this,
Yeah.
And then, as Hillary points out, what about Donald Trump's hair?
Exactly. It is such a different story. We're gonna have to wrap that up right there, because we're running a little late. But we do have another question, Blake. What is that?
If you rearrange the letters in the word Presbyterians,
yeah,
whose name do you get? That's the question.
You had a lot of time on your hand this week. Okay, we'll be right back, and we'll have an answer to that question.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
and welcome back. I'm James St. James, editor of the Wow Report. I'm here with the lovely Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, joining us from London. Hello. And also our Zennial producer, Blake Jacob.
I'm here.
Yeah. Before we left, we had a question from Blake. What was it? What did you ask?
If you rearrange the letters in the word Presbyterians,
Yeah.
whose name do you get?
President Blythe Danner.
I know it must be Ian something, but I can't think of the rest.
Ian P. Tyrion.
Britney Spears.
No!
Yeah, I say that because actually right after this, I'm going to the new In the Zone Britney experience down the street.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. We'll hear about that next week, I'm sure.
We will.
Okay, moving on.
And the week after.
And the week after. Are you going with Ed, who is the biggest Britney fan on the planet?
Edward's actually in Vegas, so I'm going with my bestie, Steven.
Okie dokie. Moving on very quickly to number 4.
Number 4.
We have Cheer, the Netflix show, right? With the cheerleading thing.
Yeah, I fell into a cheer hole.
As one does.
It's Cheer is a 6-part docuseries on Netflix. It's based on cheerleading,
Right.
like junior college.
It's a documentary. It's not an actual series, right?
Well, it's 6. Yeah, it's kind of a series.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll get a season 2. It's all based on this woman. Her name is Monica Aldama.
Monica Aldama.
And she is like the cheer whisperer. Like, she works at this tiny college in Corsicana, Texas. It's a junior college called Navarro. And she brought that cheer clinic from, nothing to now they have like 6 national titles and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Well, this
And people go all over the world, they want to come to this cheerleading.
Yeah,
place.
they come to this.
Yeah.
And just so happens that right down the street, like 40 miles away, is their biggest competitor at Trinity Valley Community College. I just thought that was weird that they're like 40 minutes away from each other.
But Texas is sort of, I imagine, a cheerleading capital.
I guess so, since it's a football capital.
Right, yeah.
This is all about the team members. You've got like a lot of the kids have had bad childhood.
And she ends up being a mentor to them just sort
She
of
does.
spiritually and sort of in their whole lives as well as cheerleading, right?
Right. There's hot guys.
I did see the Saturday Night Live did a take on it.
Did
this
they?
week.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
And it's very funny. And everyone keeps coming in, and they're all in body casts, and she keeps saying,
yeah.
"But can you cheer this weekend?" And they're like, "Yeah, I can do it. I can do it."
It is. It's crazy how many people get injured
yeah.
doing this cheer stuff. Anyway, if you're a fan of cheer or Bring
Cute
It
Boys
On,
or-
Cute Boys, you'll like it. I like this because it's like a place for little gay boys in Texas to go.
It's a safe space,
Right,
yes.
yeah. So watch Cheer on Netflix.
Okay, well, moving right along, that's me, number 3.
Number 3.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the Grammys, which happened Sunday night. Did you get a chance to see them in London?
I did not. I was at the National Television Awards.
Oh, right, exactly.
But it seems like it was a bit of a shit show, right?
Well, it's interesting because there was a couple moments there that really stood out. Demi Lovato came on stage in a wedding gown. I don't know what she was. It's a giant white dress, and she sang a song that she wrote a couple days before ODing, and it is. This is the first time she sang in about almost 2 years, and it's the first time she performed the song. And she started, and the tears were just coming out of her eyes, and it is just this sort of bleeding. She just opens a vein and bleeds all over the audience, and just is screaming, "Why is nobody paying attention to me? Will somebody please love me? Will somebody please help me? I'm in pain. I'm praying, and I don't know why I'm praying. I'm singing, and nobody's listening to me." And it's just it's not a good song, but it's a sad song, and she's just screaming to the audience, "Please help me! Please, somebody help me!" And you know that it was written as a real cry for help, and to hear her still singing it and still singing, as a cry for help. It was very emotional and moving, and the audience was in tears. It was a really interesting moment in pop culture. I just wanted to talk a little bit, though, about some of the outfits.
I loved Ariana's.
Ariana came in wearing all the tulle in Los Angeles.
Yes.
She managed. It was like one of those toilet covers, or like toilet paper covers, is what it looked like. I thought it was a little extra. I
loved it.
Lizzo came out and performed
Amazing.
in a black sequin, Christian Siriano dress that was amazing. She wore a Britney Spears outfit that she recreated on the red carpet, the white one, and she also was in sort of this dripping beaded outfit. That was really fantastic. Lil Nas X stole the damn show.
And Versace.
In pink Versace bondage that was so cute and so wonderful. And in my mind, he upstaged Billy Porter. I thought Billy looked ridiculous. I'm sorry. He's living his best life. I love him. He's out there. He's pushing fashion boundaries.
Right.
But I don't think it always hits the mark. He wore this hat that opened and closed.
Right.
And it was cute and it was funny. It would have been fun at a club. I don't think it was perfect for the red carpet.
But it feels like Lil Nas is like sort of, in terms of just sheer outrageous, fabulous drag type gay. I mean,
He really is living every gay boy's dream, is what he's doing.
Is Lil Nas gay?
He is gay. He came out right as Old Town Road was peaking, and it didn't hurt his career. It didn't hurt the sales.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I love the outfits.
I know.
And he had BTS in them too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In his performance.
He always hits it for me. The Jonas Brothers came out in Chanel for Men. And they were really fantastic. Nick accessorized with a piece of spinach in his mouth that everyone went everyone was like, he has food in his mouth. And they kept doing close-ups on him, and you kept seeing his tooth with this big piece of spinach on it.
Why can't you tell me?
Well, they did. There was a meme going along he kept saying, do I have spinach in my mouth? And his brothers kept saying, no, you look great, because they wanted him to, they hate him so much. So there was that. There was Ariana Grande. There was John Legend, who was wearing sort of a half long jacket, half short. That was interesting. Billie Eilish was wearing some Gucci tracksuits. I love her because she doesn't dress slutty. She's a young girl, and she says, I don't want people to know my body. You don't have that right, and I'm going to cover it up. I'm not going to be in a little thong. I love that about her. I think she's really fantastic. Joy Reid, God, that woman.
You mean Joy Villa?
Was she the one in the Trump dress?
Yeah. Why do we even have to give her?
Because every time there's a red carpet, she comes out in a Trump 2020 dress.
Who is she? Why does she get invited?
I think she crashes. I really think she crashes, and the photographers start taking her pictures, so she gets pushed down the red carpet. Is what happens. Shawn Mendes looked absolutely fantastic. Lana Del Rey wore a dress that she bought
Dillard's.
From Dillard's. She went to the mall and got a $500 dress and wore it. God bless her. She looked fantastic. And so I just wanted to sort of do a quick little roundup of Grammy fashion. Let's move on now to number 2. That's you, Fenton Bailey.
Number 2.
My last Sundance pick, I'll talk another time about Whirlybird, which is the World of Wonder executive produced film about Zoe Turr, the helicopter pilot who basically reinvented television news. But I'll talk about that later when it's closer to when it actually airs. But the other film I saw, I was so excited about it. Jason, I thought about you the entire time.
Yeah.
It's a documentary called Mucho, Mucho, Amore.
Okay.
Which is the sign-off, what's the word, turn of phrase?
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
From Walter Mercado,
yes.
Who is the Puerto Rican Liberace, for want of a better word. Right?
The astrologer who is very flamboyant. For 40 years or 50 years, he's been every abuela's, every grandmother, Spanish grandmother, loves this man. And he is the first, probably, gender-fluid person that many Spanish people have ever seen.
Absolutely. Wears fantastic capes. Used to be a telenovela actor. One day they came to him and said, can you just do the astrology, zodiac for people? And it just went off the charts. And he's always going like this. Like that.
And it's filmed in season 1.
Of Tammy Faye in terms of his sense of camp and presentation, and also the sort of just a pure love and joy, coupled with just a kind of wink. He was really funny, and it's a very sad story because he was everything. He was massive. He was huge, worldwide figure. In fact, we had him years ago. We did a series, Viva Hollywood, on VH1, and we were so honored and excited because Walter Mercado came on as a guest, and we came out in a big throw, and it was fantastic. But here's what happened. I think sometime in the 80s or 90s. I think in the 90s, he signed a contract with his partner, not lover, partner, who was really producing his shows, and in that contract, he gave up everything. He gave over all rights to his past material and even to his name.
Oh dear.
And so
the Holston story.
Being forced off television. He couldn't get his life back. He couldn't get his name back. It was basically the end of his career. Sweet story, because he finally did get out of that contract, and the evil man is in the documentary and is pretty evil, I must say. But there is a happy ending of sorts in that just before he died, he unfortunately passed away, I think.
Fairly recently.
Yeah.
No, yes, relatively recently. But before he died, a museum in Miami did a huge retrospective, and it was a great comeback. And he was brought out on a throne, and there were dancers, and it was like, it was just nice to see that, the affection he commands recognized and remembered.
From around across the spectrum, because I remember in Viva Hollywood when he comes out and there's all these like sort of douchey boys sitting, Spanish boys sitting around, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Walter Mercado," and everybody loved him because, like I said, he was probably everybody grew up watching him. Everybody's mother and grandmother loved him, and there was never any judgment about this flamboyant big queen, and it's
right.
Yeah, and so
there's this marvelous moment where Lin-Manuel is doing Hamilton in Puerto Rico, and he gets to go meet him, and Lin-Manuel is crying.
Right.
He's an epic icon, and I believe the film has been sold to the only place that is anything these days that Netflix is the Netflix nation. So it'll be on Netflix soon. So, and it's fabulous. It's directed by actually, this is a funny story. It's directed by Christina Constantini, Kareem Tabsh, and Darren Foster produced it. And all three of them, they didn't know each other before, but at the exact same time, all three of them decided to make a film about Walter Mercado.
Oh.
And they all bizarrely ended up having a conference call and decided, we'll do it together.
That's nice. Okay, well, we have to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll reveal the number one thing this week that made us all go, wow! This is the Wow Report for Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Okay, we're back. This is James St. James for Radio Andy, Sirius XM. I'm here with Fenton Bailey and Blake Jacob.
Yes, and before we get to number one, I just wanted to tell everyone that it was announced this week. RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12 will be on VH1 January 23rd. Come to the Wow Report to see all the queens that will be on Season 12.
Very exciting cast this year. I can't wait to see it. I just wanted to take a second before we go to number one because we lost a couple people this week. We all know about Kobe Bryant, but we lost Monique Van Voren last night. I don't know if you remember Monique Van Voren. She was an old Warhol superstar from back in the day. I knew her back in the 80s. She did Frankenstein, the Triple X Frankenstein that Warhol did. She wrote a book, Night Sanctuary. She was a very glamorous, "Hello, darling," she'd always say. And I met her 100 times. She never remembered my name. "Oh, hello, darling. Who are you?" She was just fabulous. Always in feathers and chiffon and just wonderful. We lost her. We also lost an uptown socialite named Nina Griscom, who was a very famous it girl in the 80s and 90s. Beautiful, beautiful woman. She was a model. Her mother was a very famous grande dame. She had Lou Gehrig's disease, and we lost her this week too. So I just wanted to do a shout out to those two things. But which leads us right into our number one, which is
number one.
Kobe Bryant. That right before the Grammys came on, we learned about how he had a helicopter crash and his daughter and 8 others, I believe.
Yes, there was nine in total.
9 in total, yeah. And it reminded me of when Whitney died the night before the Grammys. You know, it was
Right.
that thing like the show has to go on, but how do you do it when there's just this sort of outpouring of emotion and love? Because he really was, you know, I mean, he was a god in Los Angeles for the Lakers for 20 years.
Right.
I grew up, you know, my nephew grew up with, you know, posters all over his room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sensing also, though, James, a bit of a theme here. It seems like death is on your mind, which is appropriate, right? Because this could be the last Wow Report ever as coronavirus is spreading.
Well,
rapidly
especially because
out of
I think
control.
that you possibly are a carrier. You know, you spend a lot of time in China, and we don't know what you eat there, you know, because apparently it's eating bats and beavers and things like that. What have you been eating when you're in China, and do we need
Well,
to
James,
worry
the thing
about
that
you?
should really scare you about coronavirus is apparently you can spread it when you're asymptomatic, meaning that before you have symptoms, you can be infecting other people.
And you
So-
know, wait, one of the other thing is people are walking around wearing masks and everything, but apparently it can go from eye to eye. It can.
Right, but that's why you should. There's. I mean, it's not. None of this is funny. but
No.
There are pictures of people in Asia at the moment with plastic. They're taking big plastic bottles and cutting them out and putting them on their heads.
Oh wow.
And giant people just covering themselves in plastic.
Well, you might
bags.
need you might need hazmats in about 5 years. I mean, you had hazmat suits just to get around. It seems like every day. You know, the Daily Mail is a London-based newspaper, and it's famous for being very right-wing, but it's also very everything. The world is falling. Henny penny, the sky is falling. And they had something like 20 different stories yesterday about the coronavirus, and they're just really.
They know
It
those
is.
pressure points, those buttons to push to
Yes.
bring people out. It's entirely irresponsible, of course. But I mean, the good news is it's not as deadly as SARS or MERS.
Or
so-
Ebola.
Or gun violence.
Or Ebola, or the bird flu, or
right.
pig
And
flu.
James, I'll just tell you there are no cases yet reported in the UK.
Well, there have been, I think, 4 or 6 in America. So maybe
Exactly.
stay.
You could be carried.
Yeah, so maybe you should just stay in the UK. Is my suggestion
No, I'll
to
come
you.
back with a plastic bottle on my head.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy XM. I think everybody needs to go out and do something that makes the world go wow. And we will see you this time next week. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Right.